Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the third hour of our session. So, when last we left off, we had Kithul and one underneath the tent, the covering, guiding the party, protecting them, hoping that they would be safe from the creatures that are outside. The two of them, their watch goes by. Let's see how it goes by. One.
Oh no.
Roll me a perception check.
Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Oh, it's okay. He's perceptive boy.
You don't really hear anything outside of the tent. I keep saying tent, the cover, the skies, the heating area, the bowl that you're hiding in. You don't hear anything outside of it. You don't see anything. Nothing catches your attention. Eventually, you kind of fall silent. Kithul falls silent. The two of you made a little bit of light conversation, kind of getting to know each other, just a smidge, not much, nothing noteworthy. You guys get quiet. You don't hear anything out there. It's one of those, like, almost feels like a practiced silence. You know what I mean? Kind of creeps you out a little bit. Eventually, the hours roll by. You're just truly getting exhausted. And it's time for somebody else to take over the watch. You don't know Kithul. You don't trust him. He doesn't seem like he's a bad guy, but you never know. So you get to go over and give that swift kick over to Rayrin to have him wake up to take over the watch.
Yeah, that does make sense because dim light, I can see him. So
Rayrin has to sit there for another couple of minutes on getting up. Eventually he's up and takes a few more minutes to get himself settled as you start settling yourself into sleep. Rayrin's watch takes over and his hours begin to pass. But an hour after Rayrin's watch starts, finally Kithul retires himself and goes in and rests. Unlike with one, Kithul does not make light conversation with Rayrin. As a matter of fact, does not even say a word to Rayrin, other than like a nod. Rayrin doesn't see it, and that is that. And
I would have told Rayrin as well not to wake Valden to wake me back up.
Ooh.
If the other watch is needed.
Okay.
Don't wake the weak one up.
You say it loud enough that it wakes him up so he hears it, but then goes back to sleep. No, so you start your watch. Do me a favor, sir. Roll me your perception check.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Bump.
And so you're listening as well. You can't see anything. You're actually relying completely on sight. It's one of those things where because you're so blind for so long, it's almost like your ears become even more sensitive. Just as like you're barely listening. Can you did you want to enhance that roll? Are you happy with your 13? Because you hear something. Little, almost feels like scratches. Can't quite tell what it is. Happening on the dome that you're on, the outside of it. You feel like you hear noises, but nothing's moving. Nothing's getting in. And it might just be your imagination because it's so faint. Sometimes you think you hear something and so it apparates in your mind. The hours roll by. You yourself need to finish your rest. You've been awake, but honestly, having the broken sleep watch is the worst. And you need to get the rest of your rest. And so you do have to lie down. You have a couple of options. You can do the wishes of one, wake him back up, but that does mean he's going to be a bit tired the next day. You can ask Kithul to take over, because F that guy. Or you can actually wake up Valrin and let him finish the watch while he's kind of like preparing his magics or whatever.
Valrin hasn't had a watch. I'm awake, Valrin.
Okay, do I roll to see if I got my fatigue going now?
Nope, it just goes away.
Hey!
Because you're taking last watch, it just goes away.
Oh, good. Okay, then yep, I would. Okay.
If you had the broken watch, I would have been mean.
I'm clutching the thing. I'm not using it yet, but I've got it ready, and my watch begins.
So you
Valrin would say, I heard something scratching Tom a few hours ago. Don't react, just wake us if it gets worse.
And so your watch begins, and time passes. Your perception check, please, sir. Rolls a 91.
Don't tempt the game.
Hey! Oh!
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
I got a good night's sleep. I'm
You
good to go.
definitely hear scratching. You definitely hear scratching. At first, you heard it. You weren't thinking anything, but then you slowly shift yourself over and kind of like bring yourself over to the edge where it is, and you like listen. You're like listening carefully. Kind of press your ear against the inner part of the dome that you're hiding under, and you hear the scratching is deliberate. It sounds like, is that scratching like something like scratching at the actual outside? Not exactly. Dare you do it? Oh, screw it. Prestidigitation. You have it, right?
What would... I mean, yes, I have prestidigitation.
Pulling up the ever so slightest dim light, like a candle light, like one candle in your hand, and using that as close to the edge as possible, shielding it so that not too much light gets through, and squinting with your parent eyes. You look and you're like, oh, are they unweaving the basket from the outside?
Slap on the legs, just... They are unweaving. They are unweaving the cover from the outside.
So, they can't get through it, obviously.
No, they are trying to do it stealthily. They are going to get through, I think.
How many hours until dawn?
How many? Well, what watches we would know. Oh no, I guess we don't. Yeah. I do not know.
Wait till they break through and then activate your sunrod.
Got it ready.
Okay. And so you let them try to rest. Like, okay, like I'll just keep watching. You sit there once again. You're holding your sunrod like you were before, like all pensive and like
Now I'm watching
nervous.
that spot.
You're watching that spot when you hear scratches behind you. You turn around, and you see there's not one, not two, 15, 20 spots that are all slowly moving and unweaving, very slowly. They're not breaking through. To be honest, you guys have woven this thing extremely well. Had maybe you woven it more poorly, they probably would have gotten through long ago, or by now at least. Maybe if you had it didn't hide as well as you had, maybe you would have had them starting to open the thing earlier in the night. But either way, one thing that you do notice is the quick and sudden change in sound that wakes everybody up and gets them all sitting up, just like all at once, full attention. As you hear as all of a sudden you hear scrambling of, you don't know how many creatures, you don't know how many feet or hands or whatever they are, go scrambling off of the outside of the dome. Like they just go running and running away, and you can hear like chittering against the stone down below as they go running off. And about 2 or 3 seconds after that, you can see one tiny beam of light coming through an area of the dome where they had unwoven it just enough that light's able to start coming in.
Well then, that was close. I don't believe that plan would work again, but good thinking nonetheless. I get the feeling that we got lucky and they took too long to find it. They were looking at the hole an hour longer and they may have gotten in. And it sounds like there was a lot of them.
Yes. Does sound like there were a lot of them. Which is rather perturbing.
Yes, it is, actually. I think the safety in numbers idea might be good. And is the other guy still asleep?
No, Cthulhu, he's, like I said, woke everybody up. Everybody sat up. Like,
I'm going to say the next part I was going to say.
Mhm.
Just safety in numbers might be a good idea. Yes. Shall we? Just...
You guys slowly lift the thing up to see if you can see through and what's on the other side. And as you lift up, you can see the whole area was neatly woven together. A little messiness, planned messiness by that incredible 29 roll done by one the night beforehand. But for the most part, the whole dome was well woven, covered in a bunch of vines, and positioned vines around it. You can see a solid like 20 to 30% of the vines that were covering it and around have been severed and removed and are strewn about the room, like all over the place. Like they were just kind of like ripping them apart and tossing them as they went and were trying to like cut away at it, much like you can imagine rats eat away at a wall. You know what I mean? So, sometimes they eat the wall.
That's disconcerting. Yep. He's just looking at the room, just like, at least it was the net and not us.
And so there's that mess everywhere in the room.
Yes, I would say the plan worked very well.
Yes, as I said, I do not believe it will work again, so I believe we should move.
It's daylight now. We should head to the caravan and deal with the issue there for Kithel.
We should. We need to watch out for vines along the way, but I believe as long as we stay in the sunlight and maybe open up as many windows as we can on the way out, we should be okay, at least mostly turning to Cthulhu from those things, right?
Much of the inside of this castle is in darkness. No direct sunlight, and many areas to be attacked. We would have to walk single file, and even then, we might be putting ourselves in danger. As soon as one presents themselves as a weakness that can be attacked, maybe those at the other end of our line will be as well. It will be, I think, dangerous and foolish for us to leave out the way that I came in. I was lucky in my solidarity. Perhaps we should go out the way that you came. And he gestures towards the rope dangling from the ceiling, because it seems as though you had a bit of a unique entrance.
One looks at Valorant and says, do we not need to deal with this keep?
We do, but not necessarily right this moment. If we have an idea...
We are already here. I say we deal with it first.
Those people might die if we don't help them. This keep will stay here no matter what.
Yes, I believe that learning about the keeps and knowing what is in them and what perils are in them is just as valuable as stopping one of them. We must remember, we must disable them all within a time frame. It would be better to learn about them first and then disable them.
Could you perhaps call out for your invisible friend? I believe you said, I don't know if you said it or not, that he that didn't even know what keep he was appearing at.
Yes, I believe he is tied in some way to the specific places. He didn't seem to be able. The magic was tied to that room. I do not believe that just any room it would work within this castle. He also did not give me a name, so. Looking at the rope. Looking at one. Do we have any way of getting that down?
Don't we want to climb? Don't you just want to climb out there?
We want to get out of the castle.
Well,
he came down on the rope, remember?
Yeah, go up it and then go.
So he threw it back down.
Yeah, and then go down on the side of the castle.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, that might be a good idea.
Perhaps to leave the keep, maybe we can find one of the balconies I saw from the ground level of the outside. Perhaps we can bring the rope there and Maybe we can use that location to climb straight to the floor.
There's
Yeah.
a balcony through that way. However, there's also one of those creeping vine things.
Never mind then.
Yeah, you know what? No. Okay, so how long a rope is it? 50 foot? Yeah. How tall is... What?
Whichever of those is
How-
50.
Yeah,
It
how
was
tall is the...
5,550.
Damn, that's a long rope. It's like trailing all the way back to the other keep. Okay, so how tall is this keep?
Hold on, 20, 40. About 60 feet tall. You know, but that's if you're going like a straight drop down. 60 feet, well placing it over by one of the parapets or whatever. But you still have to use some of the rope to actually tie around things and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does anybody else have a rope as well? Or is it just the one person?
Let me double
I
check.
think it was just me.
Yeah, I don't have a roll in mine. Rope. I know what I meant to say.
The issue is getting the rope back, because going up to the roof and then down from the roof was one thing, but the rope is pitted in at the top.
We can find a smart way to do this. Certain knots can be used that with the right tug will collapse from down below. They're difficult to manage. I do not know how. Perhaps one of you do?
What knowledge are we rolling?
Use rope? No. It's craft, so intelligence check.
Do I know?
You're familiar with the knot. You know of it, but like much like being friends with a Boy Scout that can do crazy knots, doesn't mean you know how.
I know of it.
Yeah.
Could we perhaps use some of the vines of this thing and tie them together to make a rope?
I imagine everybody nods to that one. Good idea. It's like there's almost like we killed rope.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
killed
that's true.
living rope. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'd start trying to tie those together to make.
So this is actually more difficult today than it would have been yesterday, because as I described beforehand, the way that you guys had beautifully woven it beforehand was tattered to shreds by these things. So you end up having to like find 2 or 3 decent lengths of vine, and like it takes you a while to find them and eventually cut them and kind of like weave them together in a way that they actually kind of like bind together and have some strength there too. The whole process takes about an hour. Because you literally just, oh, no, another one's broken. Damn it, this one broke too. God damn it, start over. But eventually you are able to do it and are able to weave together another length of vine that's about 40 feet long. It is heavy as hell, unlike a hemp rope. It is really heavy. But nonetheless, it will do the trick that you're looking for. So,
How long did you say it was? Sorry.
about 40 feet.
Okay, so we probably want to find a balcony. Not the one we found, a different balcony, maybe.
Maybe we can climb up here and drop from the ceiling. We now have additional rope.
Yes, that's a good point. We could just tie the rope onto this as well, and then that would cover the distance.
Who's climbing first?
I suppose I could give it a try.
Climb
We
check,
got
sir.
this. We got this. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Climb, climb, climb.
Rarin is going to take off his studded leather
Okay.
and hand it to one of the others. Right. Let's give it a go.
And You start trying to climb the rope, and you get about halfway up the rope when suddenly it just you grab it wrong, you wrap your leg wrong, whatever it is, you end up slipping and free falling back down. What's this? Oh. Oh. Oh, what is this? What is this spell I didn't know existed?
Okay, that's actually pretty cool.
Would you like to roll that check for the then?
Darren starts to fall, and he literally just reaches out, and his hand like just goes onto the rope.
Reroll. Ah!
Fine.
It's technically worse.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. I can do it again.
You can't do it again. It requires an immediate action.
Yeah, it's worse DC though.
You can immediately attempt another climb check. Each successive use of this spell in a particular situation.
Yeah. Ah. You rolled worse the second time around because of the penalty. So you fall.
Can I try and catch him?
Absolutely. Yeah. Why don't you roll a reflex save?
I thought it. Wait, it says each use of this spell in a particular situation increases the penalty.
Situation could be like a 15 check climb up a mountain over the course of many rounds.
Got it. Okay. I didn't understand what that meant. My bad.
Nope.
You Superman him, so you extend your arms and dissect him to 3 equal parts, like Lois Lane. No, you try to catch him, but unfortunately, he just ends up falling on top of you. Instead of him taking 1d6, you each get to take 1d4. You may roll your own / roll 1d4.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. This episode is the Looney Tunes episode. Oh,
And we have our damage affect the other.
The good news is it's reduced. Oh!
Oh,
The good news is if it's 10 feet or less, it's only non-lethal damage, which is hilarious to think about because in real life you can easily die from way less than a 10-foot fall, but it's non-lethal. So
that heals. That heals.
1 point an hour, yeah. But oh my god, that's amazing. All right, so do you try again, Rayrin? You first after you kind of like rub the back of your shoulder or whatever.
I'll. Unless he goes to do it again, I will give it a
Yeah,
shot.
screw it. This thing ain't beating me.
Oh, okay. Yep.
We're about to spend an hour on a rope. Oh, like it's a door. There we go. And so
Nailed it.
this time you change your approach. You see where it was that the fraying of the rope or whatever it was. It affected you last time, and you climb to the top. Who's next?
By the way, someone has to carry an extra 20 pounds of weight because that's how much mammal.
I can tell you, I can't carry that.
I'll try and throw it up to you.
20 feet up.
I'll try.
I don't know if you can throw a big floppy jacket 20 feet in the air. That's pretty high.
Discus.
I mean, it's pretty heavy. It's studded leather.
Yeah, but it's
You
It's floppy. It's not aerodynamic.
It's not floppy because for leather to have provided any sort of resistance, it would have had to be stiff and hard. That's how actual leather armor works. It's not flexible. It's not like people think it's dexterous, but it's actually like you knock on it and it's like wood.
You know, there's a pretty simple solution to this. And Mahara grabs the bottom of the rope and starts tying it around the armor.
There you go.
Yeah, fair play. But actually, yeah, leather armor was like super stiff because otherwise it was useless.
Yeah.
It's still mostly useless. All right, who's next?
I will climb. Oh, why is my climb -1? Damn it.
Because your strength's like an
We
8.
go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh, look at that! I'm fine.
Oh yeah, but he has no problem climbing up there. You know what I mean? Climbs up. Do. 1, you going next?
He had a
Yeah.
good rest. He's good.
Go ahead, 1. Also, no issues going up. Why is your climb only why do you have a penalty to 1?
My armor.
Oh, ACP. That makes sense. Because I thought climb was based off strength, and you actually have a strength, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. We all.
Are,
suck
are
at
you
climb.
also at a medium load, sir?
I don't know.
Oh, that's
Why do I
weird.
check that?
The what is it? Other information page or whatever it is. Seeing if your load is above, like under where your equipment is.
No, I'm at a. I don't know what load I'm at actually.
Okay, and then where's this?
How heavy are potions?
All right, we ready? Like we're talking 10 equals 1 pound, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna bother go. I don't have nearly enough to add up to encumbrance.
All right, here we go. And then you climb up. You climb up there, no problem. And then finally, with the ropes over his shoulders, the vines over his shoulders, making his ascent.
Before he gets up, as he's climbing, one just kind of yells down at him, that spell you cast yesterday, it was divine in nature. And then I just say, who do you serve?
This is while he's climbing.
Yeah.
Actually, your question, because he like cranes his neck up to answer, he's like, "What I."
God damn it! And killed the NPC by asking a question.
And he ends up falling back and hitting the ground below. And he's like, he takes a moment to get like a turtle on it, rolls himself.
You know, this is more construction. It has survived one hell of a beating, this floor.
And then stands back up, tugs on the rope twice to make sure it's strong, then looks back up to you and calls out and says, "No one particular. I just serve." And then he grabs the rope and starts trying to climb up one more time.
Would I don't know, be able to attempt a religion check or anything to kind of work out what's going on? What he means by that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good thing no one was under him. Yeah. Splat.
Oh, where is religion?
Wicked Witch of the East. This.
So you know that in this world, or at least on this continent, there are more than just gods that you worship. There's something called idiopans, or ideological pantheons. Idiopans. Idiopans are a group of different gods that might be of different religions, as long as they all share at least one alignment on the alignment scale. So all lawful, or all good, or all evil, or all neutral, right? And they all have all these gods have something about them, something in their portfolio, or something that is idealistically like really important to the essence of worshiping this god, that is similar to that of another god. And these idiopans are comprised of more or less like these certain ideologies. So there might be an idiopan of good, you know what I mean? And so it's like all different good gods with all these different, just so long as you're willing to help others. Might be an idiopan of good. There might be an idiopan of chaos. As long as you're fighting against the rule of law, all for personal freedom, whether it be chaotically or whether it be evilly or good, they might all share in under one idiopan. So it's not uncommon that he might be a little bit general, but based off what he said, you're thinking it's even more vague than that. Maybe he doesn't worship any one particular god or even one particular idiopan. Maybe it's even less than that. But more importantly, knowing his race, you don't know much of the Orients. You don't know much about what they are at all, aside from they're blended with other otherworldly creatures. Maybe he gets the power from his blood. But either way, you didn't get a hint as to one particular god or idiopan.
Okay. So as he's climbing up, what Rayron and Valorant would see is one's kind of like nearly on the edge, and he's gripping his axe in one hand, and you can see he thinks, and then he just slowly puts it back behind him, behind his back, and gets up.
Okay.
Okay. Valorant is now much more terrified of one.
Eventually he comes to the top, and it's one of those things where, you know, if anybody tries to extend a hand to lend aid as he gets to the top, instead of giving you a hand, he throws like vines, because it's 40 feet of heavy vine draped over his shoulders. So that's kind of pulled up, then he can pull himself, the rest of his body, up onto the roof of the castle, the keep, and you guys are able to finally release the pythons, grab them, pull them out, go over to the other end, drop down the vines on the other end, and continue using the rope and vine combo to get yourself down below. Let's not waste our time with more checks at this point because you're able to make yourself to have shorter drops than 20 feet, planning for this roof here or that ledge there, and assist each other because the gap is not so great. You can assist each other even with one person kind of climbing down 10 feet, then reaching up their hands to also give you something to climb on or whatever. So we'll skip by any more checks at this point.
Okay.
Inevitably, you get down to the floor outside the keep together. And when you're out there, you can feel that this forest is, you flew over it beforehand coming here when you were on the back of the giant eagle. But as you were flying over here, it just felt like a normal forest. But for some reason, this particular area, it feels particularly dense. Now, when I say normal, it's one of those forests I could easily walk a horse through, or even like, even trot a horse through, but probably not gallop. Here, it's dense to the point where a horse would be constantly like weaving between trees, like every few steps, where a human can walk relatively normally, but certainly would be impeded on any runs, or charging might not even be feasible. Very unlikely to have a straightaway. So you are in this very dense feeling forest with a bit of underbrush here and there, and are able to start making your way out. Keith will immediately, without saying a word, just starts walking off into a direction.
Okay.
Let's
If we
follow him.
follow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he starts walking with you guys. One of the things that you notice requires a perception check.
Oh,
Okay.
Nelly, oh boy.
You know,
Nice, nice
I'm
parent
watching-
nature there, Tesh.
I'm watching one. I'm just like, he's got an axe. He was gonna use it. Now I'm scared.
Valoran, what you notice is that it's unusual, but there's a lot more vines in this forest than what would typically be able to grow with so little sunlight. Granted, vines usually grow on the shaded side of a house or a fence or whatever it is, right? They don't usually grow where it's particularly sunny. But even still, there's a lot of vines going up and down these trees. None of them moving or anything like that, but you do notice that. Raven, what you notice is there are a lot of like bits of ivy, the kind that grows on the ground as well. Vines and ivy that grows on the ground all around this whole area. Every bit of it just seems to be coming out of the ground and in other areas. It doesn't look like the same vines that you had come across before. You know what I mean? It seems like the natural vines that you'd seen growing up onto the side of the building before, but not like the one that literally tried to choke you out and kill you, right? It just seems different from that one. Not as thick, not as broad, like natural ivy, but an incredible amount of it on the ground as well as the trees. One, what you see is the ivy ahead of where you guys are walking, ahead of where, what's his name, Keithel is, almost seems to be parting or making a path. You have to look well past him and through some brush and trees and whatnot to see it. But you're pretty sure you see it literally parting or like making a path for you guys as you're walking through. And then,
So
out
this
of curiosity,
point,
you look
wish
back.
I rolled an insight.
You look back and you see behind you. It seems like it's closing up behind you where you
Oh.
go.
I immediately yell, Cthulhu, and I say, "Where are you taking us?" And then I start to back away and motion for them to do the same whilst looking around us.
Okay. He turns and he looks at you and he's judging as you are clearly being very defensive and looking about like paranoid and whatnot. And he
I
looks
have
at
my
you.
axe out as well.
His face is very stoic, as it always is, and he says, "I am bringing you to the caravan, where the
Sense motive.
feel free."
Do we all get to do one, or is it just him?
Yeah, well, you can do it,
Let's do
or
this.
not.
You know what? I'm scared of one. I'm doing what one says.
All right, there you go. So you sense motive. You're looking at him and judging by just like his body language, which is hard to read because he's very stoic. He's not a typical human. He's some otherworldly creature. But judging by his body language, the way he says things, all of that just suggests you can't tell if he's lying to you, if he's leading you to your death, or genuinely. But what does get to you it's his eyes. Even though his body is made out of some type of granite, literally has like emeralds growing on his face. Despite all that, there's an innocence in his eyes. Very human looking. You get the impression he's telling the truth. And he might not even be fully aware of what it is that you're alarmed about. He actually seems a bit concerned.
I say the vines are parting around you and closing behind us. I gesture with my axe and I say, Valorant, Rayron, look.
You guys see, after spending like a couple extra moments of like maybe walking 3 or 4 steps outside of the center area where you are, like more to the periphery, you guys can see that there are vines, in fact, that are all around where you guys are. Like, yep, there's some over here. Yep, some over here too. But more importantly, if you start to get too close, just to like look at the vines or maybe poke them with a stick or whatever it is, as you get within like 3-4 feet of them, they seem to be like inching towards you closer, almost like you're tempting them just a little too much. You take back a couple of steps and they stop.
Okay.
I will yell out, Cthulhu, come back this way.
He turns and walks your way. He's very cautious, and you can see that his grip is very strong on his quarterstaff as he's watching you, not whatever you're gesturing towards.
Do the vines part as he gets close?
Whoever happens to be well enough ahead of him in the direction that he's walking, you notice, not immediate, it's not like one step is instant. It's after you take several steps, some of them start to part out of the way as well. And if somebody goes back and looks the other direction, it seems as though they've slowly creeped towards in that direction. But what you notice is it's not like they part in the sense that they literally move out of the way. It's almost like they kind of fall underneath the topsoil, kind of pull themselves back into the ground itself. And that the ones in the area behind start to pull themselves out of the soil, like growing up from below.
One says, Cthulhu, what are you?
I have been asked that many times in my life.
And I ask you again.
I am what the common tongue calls an Oread. I have in my veins the blood of humanity, but also the blood of the plane that rock and stone was born in.
Why is it that these vines retreat from you?
A better question might be, why is it these vines grow and follow to begin with? And why was it they attacked the caravan? Perhaps if we knew that, then we would know why they do not attack me.
Either way, you appear to be a bit of a safe spot in this forest. I fear we may not have even reached the caravan if you were not here. Looks at one.
One looks at Valorant and he says, what if he is part of the test we must overcome of the keep?
I do not know what test that you speak of, but as I've said beforehand, I am not from these lands, and I've only recently traveled to them with this caravan that I've met 4 days hence. 4 days before. Wow, not 4, but backwards.
Sense, narrative.
Sure.
Once you get a 1 this time, and we're fucked.
Murder him! Honestly, those are 2 sexy rolls, dude. You honestly, once again, he's too stoic. He's too alien to be able to read his body language. But it's his eyes. His eyes are they're an open book to you. He's a sincere person.
I look to the others and I say, well, I guess we'll place our faith with Cthulhu. And then I just say, may Vrogar watch over us.
He watches after you for like another solid 2 seconds, judging you, because you're kind of a loose cannon. Axe is always out and in. Threats are always thrown and held. You know what I mean? Watches you for another like 2 seconds or so, and then he turns and just continues walking silently, leading the way. inevitably you guys make your way over to where it is that you hear like shouts, but not shouts of pain or whatnot, but like shouts of people conversing back and forth to one another. Like, you got that down there? Yeah, I got it, but it's stuck. I got it in front of me, but I can't pull it out. Like, well, then you don't have it, do you? Well, it's here. It's just not, here. Like, oh, jeez. And you guys break through the tree to come into a little bit of a clearing. Not very large, seemingly coincidentally just large enough that it's a clearing that can hold a 5-wagon caravan that is in this area. Now, this 5-wagon caravan that you can see is all the wagons are stretched out. One of the things that you notice is that all the wagons themselves have the wheels removed. The wheels themselves are actually closer to where you guys are than where the wagon is, kind of like lifted and hoisted over by the trees. Some of them completely shattered, others just like cracked, others still in good shape. The wagons are all held down by a ton of vines that are wrapped around them and pinning them to the ground. The covers to the wagons have mostly been tattered open. There are people kind of standing amongst the wagons in them, none of them on the ground around, and I'll explain why in a second. And then all of the horses that were at the wagons, well, some of them are clearly dead. Maybe dead because their heart stopped of fear. Some of them clearly dead because vines have reached underneath their flesh and the horse didn't survive. And others pinned to the ground and just horrified but still alive. The reason why they can't really leave the wagons and go around is because there is a dense gap about 20 feet wide of horrible, standing about 5 foot tall, but horrible barbed vines all around, growing up from the ground. These huge thorns growing out of them that look wicked. Look like they could easily pierce through something as plain and horrible as studded leather armor. Though maybe not plate mail. Definitely could pierce through studded leather armor. Might even find its way through kinks and chain. But it is very densely put together. And even just a quick poke of one of those vines that are there, 2 things happen. One, they're stiff, they're hard, so they are not something that you can easily just kind of like push to the side or move with your hand or move carefully through. And 2, it almost felt like it pushed back.
Okay.
Kithel calls out to the rest of them who haven't seen the 4 of you approaching and says, look over here. I have found some that might be able to lend us aid. And he calls it out in like the loudest voice that he can, which is a lot quieter than you would expect for somebody of his massive size. And a couple of people look over, they're like, oh, hey, it's Kithel! Kithel's back! Oh, thank the gods in the skies and the earth, calls another. Divine the earth, too. And then you see like heads poking out as a whole bunch of, it looks like they might all be humans, are presenting themselves and standing in a place that you can see and where it is. So you can see those that control the wagons. And one of them calls out, clearly the oldest among them, has a bit of a longer gray beard, slicked back, like intentionally slicked back, but all gray hair, wearing clothes that are of decent quality. Calls out to you guys and says, well then, hello. Glad that you're going to try to lend some aid. I imagine pleasantries, we don't have time for that. So I'll just tell you that my name is Phil. What can you do to help us?
One yells out, the servants of Rogar are here. We will help free you.
Rogar is known for freedom. All praise Rogar Waruk. If freedom is what he wishes to deliver, we'll gladly take it into our hearts and with his blessings.
One nods.
I just look at Ray and I'm just like, go.
and
You have to be louder. You have to be louder than he is.
Weirdly, just after you do that, one seems to just start staring at you.
I love that you guys are about to become a theocracy.
Yeah, we're not. We're really grateful. One, for all the help that Rogar gives us.
Yeah.
I feel that saying that we're servants of Rogar might be a bit misleading because
We all serve Rogar, and one just like brushes you off and walks up to the
What?
caravan.
Wait.
So now I go and stab someone, and it's in the name of Rogar. Really, this just comes back to bite him.
One doesn't listen
That's
to you.
one way of looking at it. She.
One removes your
It's
tongue
back.
from the heresy.
Oh no. Well.
Orcs.
I don't know how much use I'm going to be in this fight, but I'm going to try.
Don't worry, we're used to it.
Kithel says, "Fight? What fight do you speak of?"
I think he meant it more of like a this endeavor.
Yes. Oh. God damn you.
Have you any plans, any ideas how to cross something so thick and strong?
I presume they've attempted to burn the vines.
Somebody calls out, "Yep, that filled this. Yep, we did that. Set fire to them. They're actually quite flammable. It was pretty bad. They weren't this blackened before. Well, now they are. We got the fires put out. Lost a lot of our supplies. Almost no water left amongst us. I've gone to drinking ale. You were already drinking ale." And, but that didn't weaken them in the least. Just nearly burned ourselves up.
Githel, you couldn't walk at those vines for a moment, could you? See whether you have the same effect on them that you do on the others.
He approaches and stands immediately in front of them. Nothing happens. And then he tries to, like, grab down at one of the vines and tries to grab it and tries to, like, shift it to move out of the way. Roll me a perception check, boyos.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you one hell of a perception check.
Yeah, that. You know what?
Okay. So with those perception checks, what you notice is as he grabs the vine, he grabs a spot that's safe. And he starts trying to move the vine or pull it. All of you notice, like, the area where he's grabbing and holding, you kind of looking away, looking back, whatever it is. You actually see that all of the spikes on the actual vine of where he grabbed it seems like they shrink down into the vine. Like the actual thorns themselves are subsiding at its grasp. And you guys are all feeling like, oh, good. Looks like Cthulhu could actually help with this. But then you realize one much larger spike now drives itself through his hand and out the back of it. And he lets out like a... as his hand now has this large thorn coming through it. And the one spot where his grip is on the thing. He has to grab the vine like gingerly with his other hand and then release, which just releasing those muscles with something through them, as painful as it is, and slide it out of his hand. And there's like a little bit of a hook to it too, where it snags on the inside of his hand and he has to pull it free. And when he pulls his hand out the other side, you can see what's kind of like pouring down his hand is this like deep green color, almost like an extremely included and foggy emerald would look like. Almost like blackened green color is gooping down his hand. And he looks down and he's like, "That was not how I had hoped it would go."
I apologize, Kithel. I didn't think that these vines were capable of that.
He nods as he places his good hand over the injured one and says a couple of words and concentrates, and once again casts that spell and heals the wounds that was dealt to his hand.
Well, in that case, I can presume these vines come from, well, I would guess they come from a much larger creature like the one we slew.
I would imagine so.
Or at least are caused by something unnatural. It does make me wonder as to why the vines haven't encroached any further. If they're capable of that, one would presume they're capable of taking the entire caravan.
Well, I mean, it didn't quite move to stab him. It more adjusted the spikes to do damage to him while he was holding it.
What was your caravan carrying, Phil?
Honestly, we're honest traders. We travel all throughout much of Eroth and collect things along the way from different lands. I wouldn't quite say artifacts, but certainly unique items, weapons that maybe you wouldn't be able to find from where you're from. And I'm sorry, my sales pitch isn't exactly practiced at the moment. Are you all right, Kithul? He just nods.
Artifacts. Well,
Would we perhaps be able to peruse your wares?
If you could come over here, you can look through whatever you'd like. Everything's for sale, so can't just take it. But you could definitely, if you can come across.
has any of your artifacts either one resisted the fire abnormally well, or two had more attention drawn to it by the vines?
I didn't know the vines had attention. So I would say no on that one. Certainly haven't tested anything.
I just sort of gesture at all of the like.
Valorant, there's no
entire
point
thing.
talking to a commoner about this. It's far beyond their levels of ken. We should go and observe the artifacts in person.
You know what? I'm going to do a thing. And he does the twisting of the hands, and his eyes do the glint.
This is how he casts it, twisting of the hands.
No, he just does like
Butterfly.
Not that sort of twisting of the hands.
In the name of Desna.
Yeah. So that should see through the because it's stone. It doesn't see through.
Correct. And even then, it's
And
like an inch
thick
of stone or
wood.
whatever. Yeah, thick wood, like 3 feet or something, or maybe a foot.
Yeah.
But either
3
way,
foot wood, 1 foot stone.
yeah. So you get a good distance you can pierce through. So you do detect magic, and in the area you do detect the presence of magic of these vines, transmutation magic specifically. But other than that, you don't. Oh no, you do detect magic over there. It's hard to make out what the looks like. Mostly transmutation coming from the stuff on his caravan. But no, there's conjuration as well, and a little illusion. It seems like he's got a small supply of items over there that have magic on them.
And do the vines look thicker on the area where the magics are coming from?
The magics are spread out across the caravan as you take a few steps around the
Do they
periphery
look
and looking.
thicker on any one of the carts?
I'm not going to say uniform, but more or less.
Okay. And there's no magic from like the center of this area?
No,
But all the vines are permeated with transmutation.
correct.
I would relay that information. It appears that, well, he does have quite a supply of these vines. Unlike the others, the others didn't give off any sort of magic, did they, Scott?
No.
Yeah. So unlike the other vines, and this is also talking to everyone, so Kethel as well. Unlike the vines of the creatures back at the castle, these vines give off transmutation. I can see transmutation magics involved with them. I do not believe they're the same thing.
It is possible that the one that you had faced within the keep itself was exactly as you claim it to be. A creature, a plant of some degree of life, sapient or otherwise. But that this here is a existing magical effect that's causing this, meaning the two of them might only be connected by way of circumstance, as opposed to one directly creating the other.
I would agree with Kithel's assessment. The
Indeed.
transmutation magic suggests that it's simply adapting vines that were already here, and those creatures were, well, non-magical creatures.
I'm gonna try a thing just to see what happens when I ray of frost the ones at the edges. Just gonna do a couple of them over and over again to see if once again there's sort of no damage on them.
So these ones here actually spray ray of frosting. These you are able to like make them brittle and brittle and brittle, just like frost would destroy an actual plant in real life. You make whatever vine you hit brittle, and if you come over and like smash it, it's able to cut much more. It becomes hard, so it's hard to like. It's not like your sword goes through it easily, but it definitely breaks. It can shatter underneath the weight of a heavy blow. So it does work.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna do that to a bit of an area, and then I want to wait and watch to see what happens in that hole.
Sure. So it's not like you can make a true hole, but certainly a dent into like one
Yeah.
small portion. And then you wait a little bit. It doesn't seem like anything's happening. Doesn't seem like it's growing back or anything like that.
Interesting. Well,
That's good.
it might be. It might have been a instant effects magic. Like it covered the area. Turning to Cthulhu, did it cover the area quickly and then not move at all after that?
Kind of. What had happened was the vines came out of nowhere and grabbed the wagon and dragged it to this location. And then the vines surrounded around them. We were all meant to evacuate the wagon, which seemed to be what the vines wanted. I was evacuating as well and was on the other side when these, and he gestures to the hard ones at the spikes, arose. There were others that were caught inside the area, and he kind of like looks over in a direction. I imagine they lie there still underneath the vines. The rest retreated back onto the caravan, figuring it safer than the spikes that were driving up from the ground.
First off, we should have a look at these artifacts and see whether any of them may have drawn it, or if any of them may be of use in this situation. Second, I'd like you, Kithel, to show us exactly which wagon the vines seem to go for. And then thirdly, I believe we should attempt to make some headway on freeing these people.
As for which wagon, it went for all of them. They were all taken, I would say, at the same time, but I imagine one was grabbed before another, all within less than a minute's time from beginning to end, and the dragging happening immediately as soon as the wagon was grabbed. I don't think one was targeted more than the others, just proximity.
I would give warning that it seems there's an intelligence involved. Turning back and pointing to the wheels, it knew to remove the wheels. It knew to lure them out of the wagon before trying to attack them. I feel like we're dealing with more than just a simple creature or effect. Either there's someone or something behind this.
While what you say makes sense if there is a malicious intent with an intelligence behind it, the wheels are the thing that are from the ground first. And if its attempt was to grab the biggest creature or item that it could, and then to sweep up the smaller ones afterwards, then maybe it did not go intentionally for the people. They just happened to be there as well.
That is a good point.
I do not know if there is intelligence behind this. I have a small, and please understand, very small amount of experience with things that seem to be intelligent and move like they're intelligent, but lack intelligence entirely, as is some of my, well, I suppose you could say relatives might match that description.
Okay, so how do we go about getting? Do you think this is talk to everyone? We need a plan to try and cut away to people, or make a safe way to that.
I would say we take stock of what it is we have available, and then formulate a plan from there. It may be that he just so happens to have stumbled upon a trinket that's capable of summoning a snowstorm. Likely though it may be, we may find something useful.
Whoa, hey, wait. If you need something cold, I've got a bucket of ice.
How do you have a bucket of ice?
It's a bucket of ice. You don't know what a bucket of ice is? Hold on. And he actually like steps like from one caravan to the end and hops to another one, then goes and reaches over and somebody hands him a bucket of ice, and he comes back and stops, turns back, they talk to the person back and forth for a little while. He seems like exasperated, like reaction. Comes back to the front of the caravan that are closest to where you guys are and says, "Well, I had 3, but it seems as though some of them are gone. I don't know if they're hidden amongst what's down below or they got lost in the drag, but we had 3 of them." And he holds up what literally looks like, as you would imagine, like modern day aluminum bucket that has like water with ice filled inside of it, like a pail, right? And he holds it up and he said, "This is a bucket of ice, but it's not just like a bucket with icy water inside of it." And he turns it upside down and you can see like the water doesn't fall out. He's like, "It's meant for freezing things. You can either put small things inside of it, and as long as you don't use up 2 magic at once, the magic renews itself, and you can freeze stuff pretty quickly by putting it inside. Or you can take the bucket and you can throw it at something, and it covers a pretty big area and freezes everything instantly in that area. It's a bucket of ice. You don't have them around here? I suppose. Where did I get that from?
Now that I'm just turning to Rayron while he's continuing talking. Now that could be useful.
Indeed. And his sales pitch has improved.
Yeah.
One looks at Rayron and kind of like gestures to walk off for a second.
While they have their talk, I'm gonna go to the yell to Phil. Can you bring out some more items and go over what their effects are? We can see what might be useful, and I'll be doing that with him while you guys have your talk.
How can this servant of Rogar be of assistance?
One looks at you and nods, and he's like, "I'm pleased you're coming around."
Oh my god!
And then he just like waves you off, and he looks at you and says, "Do you wish to take any of these items?"
Well, we may well use some of them if
He looks
they
at
are
you
needed.
and goes, "Do you wish to take any of these items?"
Oh no.
Raring crosses his arms. I think I made it perfectly clear that I believe in fair transactions. If this is in form of our payment, then perhaps we will take some. However, it will be the agreed transaction. Taking from people is not a good way to go about saving people.
One looks at you and says, "We'll transact. We should agree on something beforehand then. You promised our service, and so far we have
Yes.
no
I am merely
payment."
getting sidetracked by Valrin's passion. I will speak to Phil about some form of recompense before we actually enact any plan.
Good.
Now, if you don't mind me, I'm going to go and pee on the thorns.
A spike just juts forward.
Oh no! It follows the stream.
No, he's obviously not saying that.
Yeah. So you head back over, and Val was more or less asking like more or less like, "Yo, Phil, what you got?" And so Phil is going to get his like itinerary, like his manifest. Sorry, not his itinerary, his manifest, and start pulling through what might be of significance for you guys. He's starting to pull through these things, and Val's looking at them with the most trained eye out of all of you. Literally a magically enhanced one if he wants it to be. And what you're noticing is some of the stuff that he's describing to you are in fact items that look like they're magical. Some of the stuff he's describing to you are like, it can do that, but it doesn't look magical. And so you're thinking to yourself, perhaps it's alchemical in nature? And there are other things that he's describing to you, and he shows to you, and it's not magical, and you're like, yeah, that's gotta be snake oil, man. Like,
Yeah,
like
there's that one. Yeah.
yeah. But either way, he has a considerable number of supplies put before you, including several different potion selections. A bucket of ice. He says that there should be 3 there, but he only has the 1, and does suggest that maybe if you go back to where the wagon was pulled from, maybe you'll actually be able to find the other 2 along the way. And if you do come across them, please feel free to keep them. You know what I mean? Especially if it's going to be something that's going to help release them from where they are. And so on. And it kind of like continues that way as you guys are like looking for stuff and planning it out.
I mean, checking the site that they were originally dragged from and along the way may be a good idea. We can learn more about what this is and how it works.
Indeed. Cutting a path there would not only save the people, but it would give us a good inkling of what might happen should we cut a larger path for everyone to escape via.
Yes. Do we have to cut a path to get to where they came from?
No. I think he meant not cut like unless you're talking about the 20 feet of vines. I think he meant cut a path like plan a route.
Oh, right.
No, I meant like cut the vines.
Oh, okay. Then
There's
he
some
didn't mean the vines.
in the way, aren't there?
Yeah.
They're trapped under there.
Yeah,
We will
but-
have to cut the vines to free them, and it will be interesting to see whether after a period of time those vines regrow, or
That's a
Gotcha.
good
we
point.
presume
If
they
we-
don't, but given time.
I believe what,
Yeah,
what
actually-
Tesh was talking about then was walking back from where these things were originally dragged from to see if there's anything on the ground on the way.
But that is a good point. We can make a dent before we go, and then see if it regrows by the time we get back.
Okay. So how do you intend to make that dent?
Well, I mean, I would do the same thing of just ray of frosting if someone else wanted to give it a whack.
Oh man, that is a
So,
a
are we
very
talking
very
about going-
small dent.
Are we talking about going to the same place?
We are going to where their caravan was originally pulled from, because we may find the buckets, and also we may learn more about this thing and how it grabbed them.
Is that not where the people are trapped?
No, they got dragged here.
They get
Yeah,
dragged from
there's
like
a
they get
group
dragged
of
from a road to here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but there's
they
a
got
group of
dragged
people
from-
trapped under vines.
Oh, those ones they're trapped underneath these vines.
Yeah, they are dead.
Remember how he described the horse?
Yeah, Rarun would suggest that there's nothing to gain by traveling to the original attack location.
But what about the 2 buckets? Those would be quite useful.
Yes, the buckets may be useful, but we should decide on what we might use them before we go and look. This attack clearly dragged them here for a reason. It did not seem to drag something in particular, rather than everything it could grab. If we wish to use the buckets, then yes, we should go and grab them. However, there is one other matter we should discuss first. Phil, we were in the midst of doing something of great import to the land of Idir when Kithul found us. We agreed to help because we understood lives were in danger, and as we see now, lives are in danger. However, we also...
I gotta cut you off. Something of great import to the land of Idir? Who the hell hired you for that? Is there a leader of Idir now?
You could say it's prophetic in nature. My friend here has dreams. Anyway, I can tell
You know
you
what?
more.
I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth.
I can
Continue.
tell you more after we are out of here. However, right now, I would like to agree on a trade. I'm sure you understand. We are taking our time and potentially risking our lives to save yours.
I'm noticing that you're at least thinking about it.
Indeed, I would like to strike a deal.
Well, we already know what my terms are. Get us the hell out of here.
I would actually give Kethul a look of like, I'm sorry.
And what could you and your fellows offer us in return, Phil?
Whew, let's see. On the nose, because obviously you're gonna want something that's more than just a little bit of a promise, right? I suppose on the nose, we got some supplies. I can offer you some of the items that we have here that you might like. I even got a few potions can part with your way and see if they aid you. I'll even be willing to toss them your way as an advance. Make sure that keep you coming back, right? But honestly, we do still need to make a living after we live, if we live. Otherwise, what's the point of living, right? So we can't just go giving away the whole haul. So what I would do is, well, I'll tell you this: if you guys are from Idir if you intend to like live around this area, I promise I'll make treks through here again, and I'll bring good stuff from far reaches in the future. I'll even trade them to you at fair prices. I won't cut. I won't add extra costs across the top or anything like that. So yeah, every time we pass through from other lands, I'll creme de la creme on your plate, whatever you like, friend.
Would you mind if I conferred with my associates?
Hey, listen, in the name of Rogar Warak, please.
He seems like a good man, and I would say this is a fair deal. We may or may not be able to do something. Hopefully we will, and if we do, we will get some benefits later down the line.
I agree. I think there's a bit of hesitation, and you get the idea he's not he's not entirely for the idea of bargaining before helping, but he's like, it's fair.
It is fair. That's what you must focus on, Valrin. Remember not to help others when there's nothing in it for yourself. Unless, that is, you seek to gain something akin to being a hero. Which you might not be quite cut out for just yet. Just yet, mind. One?
One just looks at you and so he's offering to come back through the area every now and again.
Magical
He's
goods
like,
and potions.
I have no plans to settle here. I don't even know. I'm only here for one reason.
Some
They were going
potions.
to the town.
Some potions now to assist us, which is of a fair amount of value. Potions are not the easiest thing to come by, unless you're trekking through cursed ruins like we have been. Might I remind you, we don't do that often. I hope we don't. And then he's offering us a discount on his trade. He travels all over Eroth. Even if you do not intend to settle here, you might run into him again. Perhaps get your hands on the finest of, let's see. What rarities might you be interested in? Oh, yes, a dwarven axe. Those aren't very easy to come by, are they? Who knows? Are there even such a thing? This man might find one. And
has
at a
magical
reasonable
items.
price.
Magical items are actually fairly rare to find with traders, from my experience anyway.
He seems to have
One
a
looks
fair
at you
eye.
and he nods. He just nods at you and then walks away and yells out to one of the a group of the whoever's over, like one of the villager people or whatever, and he's just like, I heard one of you got ale.
One
The guy, one of the guy yells back. He's like, "No, I don't. Yes, you do." He's like,
And he
"Phyllis,
yells out. One yells out, I need a drink.
Phyllis, get that from your uncle." "Yes, Dad." And you hear like a bickering back and forth as a young girl is like pulling like a wine skin from the guy and brings it over to Phil, and he tosses it back over to you guys.
Yeah, one catches it and goes, and you just go sit down with them and drink.
You have a deal, Phil. We will do our best to get you free of this situation, and in return, you will give us what potions may aid us instantly to remedy your situation. We will have dibs on whatever we find out there, and you will provide us with fair discounts on all your future services when traveling through Idir and other lands should we meet.
Well, so long as you don't mean you're jumping onto the caravan and traveling with us everywhere we go, because, I don't know, undercutting every one of my transactions might be difficult. I'm kidding. You'd be welcome to join us, especially if you get us out of this mess. I'd like to have you around.
Do we have a deal then?
Indeed we do, and let me see what I can muster up for you amongst this manifest. And
Baron will proffer a hand to shake on it.
he reaches across that 20-foot gap between the two of you as well, and
No, we moved over there because we looked at some of the items, didn't we?
We can't move over.
you can't move over there. There's a 20-foot gap all around. Yeah,
Oh,
it's the whole circumference.
right, so they're in there, we're right.
And with that
outside.
deal struck, why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back for a quick little like half
I'm gonna
hour,
go-
like a quick little halfie.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go pee in those
Yeah.
in
The-
those vines.
We'll come back and yeah, we'll see you in a moment.